Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Beatles Forever, the Beatles on this date. The following stories come from the Beatles Bible. So the first story comes from the U.S. single Cold Turkey by the Plastic Ono Band, and it was dated the 20th of October, 1969, and it was on a Monday. Cold Turkey, John Lennon's second non-Beatles single, was released in the USA on 20 October, 1969. A song, a raw description of the experience of heroin withdrawal, was recorded in September and October 1969 at EMI and Trident Studios, London. John Lennon in 1980 told David Sheff for All We Are Saying, "Cold Turkey is self-explanatory. It was banned again all over the American radio, so it never got off the ground. They were thinking I was promoting heroin, but instead, they're so stupid about drugs. They're always arresting smugglers or kids with a few joints in their pocket. They never face the reality. They're not looking at the cause of the drug problem. Why is everybody taking drugs? To escape from what? Is life so terrible? Why is everybody taking drugs? Do we live in such a terrible situation that we can't do anything about it without reinforcement from alcohol or tobacco or sleeping pills? I'm not preaching about them. I'm just saying a drug is a drug, you know. Why we take them is important, not who's selling it to whom on the corner." Cold Turkey peaked at number 30 on the U.S. Billboard Pop Singles chart. In the UK, it was released on the 24th of October, 1969, 4 days after the U.S. The label for the single had "Play Loud" in all caps, printed in large bold type. The B-side was Yoko Ono's "Don't Worry, Kyoko, Mummy's Only Looking for Her Hand in the Snow." Its relative lack of success disappointed Lennon, although he could hardly have been unaware that the song's lyrical theme and musical delivery would have put off many Beatle fans. On the 26th of October, he returned his MBE to Buckingham Palace, along with a statement which read, "I'm returning this MBE in protest against Britain's involvement in the Nigeria-Biafra thing, against our support of America in Vietnam, and against Cold Turkey slipping down the charts. Would love, John Lennon, a bag." A promotional film for Cold Turkey was made by a friend of Yoko Ono's, New York-based filmmaker Jonas Mekas. Designed for use on TV pop shows and in art house cinema presentations, the clip featured offcuts from the Montreal bed-in, footage from the Toronto performance, and high-speed shots of New York street traffic. Mekas originally intended the collage to accompany Give Peace a Chance. The next story is U.S. album release Wedding Album by John and Yoko. This happened on a Monday, the 20th of October, 1969. The third long player of experimental recordings by John Lennon and Yoko Ono, Wedding Album, was released by Apple in the U.S. on 20 October, 1969. John Lennon told the BBC in 1980, "It was like our sharing our wedding with whoever wanted to share it with us. We didn't expect a hit record out of it. It was more of that's why we called it Wedding Album. You know, people make a wedding album, show it to the relatives when they come around. Well, our relatives are what you call fans, or people that follow us outside. So that was our way of letting them join in on the wedding." The couple's first collaboration, Two Virgins, marked the beginning of their relationship and artistic partnership. The follow-up, Life with the Lions, mostly documented their 1968 stay in London's Queen Charlotte Hospital, where Ono suffered a miscarriage. Wedding Album commemorated their wedding in Gibraltar on the 20th of March, 1969. Although it was the final installment of their trilogy of avant-garde and experimental recordings, the couple continued to document their lives on tape until Lennon's death in 1980. The release was credited simply to John and Yoko. Their surnames did not appear anywhere on the sleeve or record labels. The two sides of the vinyl disc, each contained a single track, John and Yoko, was a 22-minute recording of Lennon and Ono crying, whispering, speaking, and screaming each other's names at varying volumes and tempos over the sound of their heartbeats. The album's second side was titled Amsterdam and featured recordings made during their first bed-in for peace. Much of Amsterdam consisted of interviews given by Lennon and Ono, explaining their campaigns for peace and discussions with each other. The speech was also interspersed with songs, the sounds of seagulls, industrial noises, traffic, children playing, and sitars. Apple released Wedding Album as a lavish box set, which contained a reproduction of the marriage certificate, a 16-page booklet of press cuttings and labeled The Press, a picture of a slice of wedding cake, a poster of black and white photos taken on their wedding day, a hairpiece, bed piece, postcard, a PVC bag labeled Bagism, and a strip of 4 passport photographs of the happy couple. The vinyl disc was housed in a plain white inner sleeve inside a laminated gatefold picture sleeve. The package was designed by John Koch with photography by Malay Dagnon, Richard Delino, John Kelly, Nico Koster, David Nutter, and John and Yoko. Wedding Album was available on vinyl, cassette tape, and 8-track tape. The elaborate packaging led to a delay in the album being issued. It eventually appeared in the United States on 20 October 1969 and in the United Kingdom on 14 November. The album did not chart in the UK, but it peaked at number 178 in the United States. Because of its poor sales and the various elements to the release, mint condition copies are highly sought after by collectors. The album was digitally remastered and reissued on compact disc by the Ryko Disc label in 1997. It included 3 bonus tracks. Who Has Seen the Wind was written by Yoko Ono and originally appeared as a B-side to Instant Karma. Listen, The Snow Is Falling was the B-side to Happy Christmas, War Is Over, and Don't Worry, Kyoko, Mummy's Only Looking for Her Hand in the Snow was previously unreleased acoustic recording made at Queen Charlotte Hospital, London. Next we have Paul McCartney and Linda Eastman holiday in New York. This happened on Sunday, October the 20th, 1968. With the White Album finally complete, the Beatles went their separate ways for much of late October and November 1968. On this day, Paul McCartney traveled to New York, where he had a 10-day holiday with Linda Eastman. McCartney and Eastman returned to London on the 30th of October, having also stopped briefly in Jamaica. We had the recording The Fool on the Hill, Hello Goodbye. This happened on a Friday, 20 October 1967. Studio 3, EMI Studios, Abbey Road. Producer George Martin, engineer Ken Scott. This session was booked for the overdubbing of flutes and the violas onto The Fool on the Hill and Hello Goodbye. It takes place between 7 p.m. and 3:45 a.m. and began with the overdubbing of flutes to Fool on the Hill. The flautists were Jack Ellery and brothers Christopher and Richard Taylor. The flute parts were recorded as Take 7 on a separate tape, as all tracks on the main tape were full. On the 25th of October 1967, Take 6 and 7 were mixed in sync to create a final mono master. Hello Goodbye still had its working title, Hello Hello, at this stage. Viola players Ken Essex and Birnbaum had been booked to play between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m., but the session overran and they were paid a double fee. Leo Birnbaum said Paul McCartney was doodling at the piano and George Martin was sitting next to him writing down what Paul was playing. And he told this to the Complete Beatles Recording Sessions Mark Lewis John. Also during this session, Paul McCartney wiped the guitar solo and replaced it with the line, why do you say goodbye, goodbye, which was treated as heavy echo. Next up, recording We Can Work It Out. This happened on a Wednesday, the 20th of October, 1965. This was at Studio 2, EMI Studios, Abbey Road. Producer George Martin, engineer Norman Smith. The Beatles have recorded Day Tripper at Abbey Road on 16 October 1965. 4 days later, they began work on another song on the double A-side single, We Can Work It Out. 2 recording sessions were scheduled on this day. The first lasted from 2:30 to 6:30 p.m. and saw the rehearsal of We Can Work It Out, plus the taping of 2 takes of the rhythm track. This included bass guitar by Paul McCartney, drums by Ringo Starr, John Lennon's Gibson Jumbo acoustic guitar, and tambourine by George Harrison. The evening session took place from 7 to 11:45 p.m. On track 2 of the 4-track tape, McCartney and Lennon recorded their vocals, and track 3 contained a harmonium part played by Lennon. The song was completed on the 29th of October with the addition of more vocals by McCartney and a second harmonium part from Lennon. Next up, television, Thank Your Lucky Stars. This happened on a Sunday, the 20th of October, 1963. The Beatles topped the bill on their 5th appearance on ABC Television's Thank Your Lucky Stars, recorded at the Alpha Television Studios in Birmingham, England. The show was recorded on the afternoon of Sunday, the 20th of October, 1963, and was broadcast the following Saturday from 5:50 to 6:35 p.m. The Beatles mimed to 3 songs, All My Loving, Money, That's What I Want, and She Loves You. 2 of the EMI recordings had not been heard before. The show's producer, Philip Jones, had been given advance acetate disc of them and successfully persuaded Brian Epstein to have them premiered on Thank Your Lucky Stars before the release of With the Beatles. While the Beatles were inside the studios, 3,000 fans blocked the streets outside and attempted to storm the building. So next up, I found a few stories from the Today in Beatles history. On the date of October the 20th of 1969, George and Patty attend a Ravi Shankar concert in London. In October 20th, 1980, there was a UK LP release of the Beatles ballads and the US single release of Just Like Starting Over, Kiss, Kiss, Kiss. On October the 20th, 1974, John returns to the Record Plant Studios to record tracks for the LP Rock and Roll, this time produced by himself. And on October 20th, 1977, the US LP release of Love Songs, and on October 20th, 1985, recording of the TV special Blue Suede Shoes, a rockabilly session with Carl Perkins and friends, appearance of George, Ringo, Carl Perkins, and Eric Clapton. Yeah, but that was a good show. So I will end the video here. I enjoy finding out about the Beatles, and it's like going into a time capsule and we have a front row seat to see what was going on certain dates and the time in their lives. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't subscribed, if you could do so, it would help the channel to grow, as well as giving it a thumbs up. It's all a great help. And if you haven't clicked on the notification bell, if you could do that, it lets you know when a video is posted. More importantly, I want to wish everyone a good day, and tune in again soon for another episode of The Beatles Forever, The Beatles on This Date. Thank you. Bye.